requires of you to come.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, or whatever it is we're calling these things one day. Someday, Aaron, we're going to have to figure out what to call this new show. And the reason I'm talking to somebody who's not here is because somebody else is here. Aaron is here with me. Aaron, my man, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Lovely
Good to see you.
to have you here. So this is going to be a fun little recap of the NAB show that we both just got back from. That is the whole point of today's thing. And I just realized I left my house lights on. I should figure out how to turn those off. And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So for those of you who are just tuning in, which would be everybody because we just started, we are a little discombobulated today, as one would normally expect. Why would we be discombobulated? Because we decided to change and add things at the last minute. One day, Aaron, one day, we will set everything up at least a day in advance and then not mess with anything. Do you think we could do that? Are we?
Right.
Are we?
Sure.
Are we,
Famous last words.
Are we capable? I mean, I kind of feel like we're not. I'm now looking for my shortcut to turn off all the lights in here. There we go. Shooting mode on. I have a shortcut that's called shooting mode on. It turns off my AC, turns off my house lights, and it makes things better in here.
Wonderful.
I know, it's actually kind of cool when it works. So yeah, my chat system is completely broken. I screwed something up, so I can see the chat, but I can't pull it up on screen. So we'll just have to live without it, but we will be able to read the questions. So again, the whole point of today's show is to talk about NAB, which we just came back from. Let's actually first make sure that people can see and hear us in the live room because last time we had a major cluster and nobody could hear me for the first 10 minutes. Someone is saying my audio is a little bit low.
Oh, right.
Is my audio a little bit low, folks? Are we agreeing on that, or is that just one person's thoughts? Let's get a little.
Is that low compared to me or low in total?
That's a very good question and way to put that. So I can adjust mine if needed. Yep, say I am a little bit low. All right, well then in that case, let me just bring up the levels ever so slightly on the right one. That's the wrong one. Bring up the correct one. There it is. We'll bring that up a little bit, and we'll see if that's any better. And if it's not, y'all can just continue to tell me. Yeah, John's saying that your audio is louder. So, okay, how's that? Are we doing better now? Aaron, you want to give us a little sound check comparison?
Yeah. Yeah, little things happen all the time. No worries. Sounds good. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a audio situation on the back end of this, too, which we can explain later. But
just still saying it's low. I wonder if my output on my little receiver got bumped down again, which is a constant. Nope, that's at the right position. So I guess I'll just push it up in here a little bit more. Check, check. Bring that up a little bit more. We're
fine now.
I mean, I guess I could even push it higher than that because I'm not peaking. My levels are definitely a little bit better, but I'm going to push it up one more, and then that's as loud as I can go without getting crazy. And
I can always drop mine too if that helps.
That might. So I'm up to 4 now. Let's make sure I'm not clipping anywhere. And if we're not clipping, doesn't look like I'm clipping. It actually is a little bit on the hot side.
Good.
Pull that back.
Everyone says it's good now.
It's good. Excellent. All right, let's just go into this. Aaron's out of sync.
Jump right in.
If Aaron's out of sync, I do apologize. We definitely had some audio issues. This was a kind of a last-minute scramble because we both got back from NAB late Wednesday night. We had minimal time yesterday to set up, and then I changed everything this morning again. So that's just how that goes. But let's just go into NAB. Aaron, you go first. Top thing, favorite thing you saw that we should talk about first.
Top thing. Well, okay, so I noticed a big trend there, which was everything moving into the cloud. And I guess I'm not really surprised by that trend, but that is, I think, sort of the big sort of theme that I was taking away from the event. So there was a lot of different ways to do remote productions being talked about there. So the one that I hung out at a bit, and I got some video of, which I'm going to hopefully be able to edit later and talk about in more detail, is the whole Atomos stuff, which was really interesting. I think they're working on some interesting stuff there about shooting from a camera, streaming that to the cloud, being able to edit like immediately after that, and all you need in the field is the little Ninja recorder.
Yeah, that's a huge one. So for those who might have missed those announcements, let's just kind of recap what that is. So there's 2 new products. One that is an add-on for the existing Ninja 5 or Ninja 5 Plus, just a new back that goes onto it. And then they also released a Shogun, a completely new Shogun that is an all included that has the wireless capability in it as well. So essentially what happens is when you're shooting to either the Ninja 5 with the pack or the new Shogun, you can record to ProRes or ProRes RAW, depending on the hardware that you're working with, and simultaneously record to HEVC. So if you're shooting 4K ProRes or ProRes RAW, you're simultaneously recording in HEVC at 1080p. That HEVC file is uploaded to the frame.io cloud. Now here's something, Aaron, that was interesting. I think that I'm pretty sure it's you and I talking about it on the floor. Someone had said to somebody else that it starts uploading the moment you hit record, and everybody else is saying, no, it doesn't upload until you stop recording. I actually got a clear answer on this. Well, as clear as it can be. So here's what's happening. It does start uploading the moment you start recording, but it's not uploading to frame.io. It's uploading to the Atom glue system, which it's receiving the packets. If it's missing any packets, so basically it's receiving the package while you're recording. When you stop recording, the Atomos Cloud looks back at the recorder and goes, did we get everything? If it didn't get everything, it says, send me the missing pieces. And then once it has a complete file, it turns around and sends that to frame.io, which happens extremely quickly, as we saw in the demos on the show floor. So then you want to talk about what happens then from once it gets to frame.io?
Yeah, so then it just shows up in Frame.io like any other file there, and I guess I don't actually use Frame.io myself, but maybe I should start. But yeah, so I did ask that same question about like, does it start uploading immediately? Because I was curious about that. And yeah, I think that's pretty incredible. And the other feature that device also does is it can actually push over RTMP to YouTube or whatever as well, which I feel like probably isn't their main use case, but it was probably just easy to throw in there once all the rest of the pieces are there, because I feel like that's probably not the most useful bit in the device.
Well, until you get into the whole Mavis switching part of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah, okay. So the Mavis stuff is also really cool.
So let's finish the story of the whole purpose of this uploading to Frame.io. So once the clips are in Frame.io, then basically anybody who has access to that Frame.io account can access the clips. So, a producer, director, on-set or off-set can be reviewing shots within moments after they're done rolling. So shot by shot, they can review it. They can make changes. Oh, the actors, I didn't like that take. There's a thing in the set that I don't like, whatever. They can make those changes. But also it means that an editor can be pulling in those HEVC files. So there's plugins for Final Cut and for Resolve and for Premiere. They all work the same. Those files that are now in Frame.io, you can just pull in. They don't automatically start adding into your bins, your media bins, but you just drag them in as they show up. And then you can start editing, and you're editing with a proxy workflow, which then, with all three of the apps, you can very easily reconnect back to the original, the source, the ProRes or the ProRes RAW, once you're back on your NLE. And it's just an incredible workflow for anything that's under a real time constraint, whether you're talking about a commercial shoot that you've got a very, very tight deadline, you want to start editing like literally when you start shooting, a live event shooting where you might want to have, like, imagine a wedding cinematographer, wedding shooter who can have an editor who's cutting as they're shooting so that at the end of the wedding, during the party, they can already play a highlight reel. I mean, situations like that are just wildly cool. So yeah, that's
super
enormous.
Cool.
I cannot wait. I'm already talking to Atomos about doing a video around this, so that's going to be a good one. Okay. So then the second use case is the Mavis.
Maybe I should make it. Yeah. Well, I was going to say maybe I should make it my goal to find an editor.
That would be awesome.
But yeah, okay. So second, it's two pieces. So this other system for turning it into a live switcher. So you load up the switcher interface on an iPad. They had a giant iPad there running the iPad app, and all the feeds, that connects to their cloud, the Mavis cloud, I guess. And then you see all of the camera feeds in real time. And by real time, I mean actually real time. It was kind of incredible how real time it was. And they were showing a switcher interface that you would normally expect of like all the camera angles in the preview and program. And you would tap on a camera angle to cut to that. And you're tapping on the iPad sends a signal to the cloud service to do the switch, and then the program feed comes back down onto the iPad so you can see it. And the responsiveness of this was kind of incredible. it was amazing how real time it was. Now, they did say that the data center that this was running in was in Northern California. We were in Las Vegas, so that is not super long distance. So I would expect if you're going, for example, over the ocean, that might be a little.
A server anywhere where you've got that. So that's all over the world. You just choose the one that's closest to you.
Put it somewhere close to you. But yeah, it was like really, really fast. Like tap and you see it, like no real visible delay.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the use case for that. So like our live streaming shows, it doesn't matter, right? We're streaming where all of our cameras are here. There's no real reason to do that. But imagine a scenario where, especially if you have cameras in different locations, you could literally have cameras scattered all over the world streaming to one server, and then someone, a producer or whatever, is sitting on his couch in his living room at home in a totally different country, able to live edit that show. And of course, from its cloud, it can push to YouTube or Twitch or wherever you need it to stream. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. And we saw something very similar with Epiphan. So why don't we roll into talking about that? But before we do, let's take a look at the comments and see what's going on in here. We can both just scroll and grab any we want to talk about. Let's see. Someone was asking about the YOLO live screen. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
And remote collaboration. Emerald says the beta they had out there was only uploading after ending the recording, but the production version will upload while recording. That's what I gathered from another interview. Interesting. I think that, and that may be totally right, I think that on the floor, different people had different education about it, because you definitely got slightly different answers depending on who you talk to.
Well, okay, so funny story about that, actually. I was, after I had done like a little video, and I went back to I was like, I wonder what the like menus look like in this new Shogun. I was like, I'm gonna check out like, what do the settings look like? How do I go and configure this? And how do I, pair it to an account and that kind of thing. So I like poking around the menus and seeing how this stuff works. So I walk up to one of the devices on there, and I go to tap settings. I'm like looking at the little pair screen, and it says like, enter this code to pair it to a device. I was like, that's weird, because this is the one that I just a second, like yesterday, got the demo of that was actually working and uploaded to Frame.io. So like, why is it not paired? And right then, as I was thinking that, someone runs up behind me and he's like, no, don't touch that. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, yeah. This is like, essentially everything is hard coded for this demo. It's not actually the production firmware yet. So none of the menus do anything yet. It was very much set up for that precise demo of hit record, watch it appear in Frame.io. It's not ready yet. It is not shipping, so it is all very beta still. So it does not surprise me that different people there may have been saying slightly different things, because probably nobody actually really knows how any of it is working right now.
It's a good way to get yourself banned from the booth entirely. Go touch some display when they're not looking.
Yeah, oops.
Oh, that's funny. I'm seeing people say that you're slightly out of sync. I apologize for that. That is my fault, because I rerouted his video in a different way, and I totally forgot that does knock him slightly out of sync, and I don't have I don't think I have a quick and easy way to fix that. I might. I'm going to try something. Why don't you start talking about the Epiphan experience, what that was doing, and what we both did there with the Epiphan booth while I mess around with the audio.
Yeah, so the Epiphan booth, we both did a live interview from the Epiphan booth, and what they had set up was, in their booth, they made a little interview corner, which was really cute. 3 cameras set up, so 2 close-ups and a wide shot, and the idea was they were just running a bunch of interviews the whole time with people, and they were bringing on guests. But the key was, each of the cameras was connected to a Pearl Nano, which is the smallest one that I've done reviews of. I think Joseph's done reviews of as well. And that is it's a little box with one HDMI, one SDI in, and that was then pushing up to their new cloud platform. So essentially, they've taken the software that they have in the big Pearl, and now they're running that in the cloud. So all of these little Pearl Nanos on the floor were streaming video up to their main big Pearl in the cloud. And then they had a remote producer in Ottawa who was looking at their control surface and live switching the show. And that's where they were doing the layouts and adding the graphics and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of cool. So we were chatting with the remote producer over a back channel as well, which they had on TV there, which was, I think, running Microsoft Teams or something. I don't remember what chat platform it was, but we had a little earpiece. We could talk to them and see what they were doing on their computer screens. But yeah, the whole show was being essentially run by that person who was nowhere near the convention center, and we were just there on cameras, and that I think that is a perfect example of this sort of move everything into the cloud workflow or distribute the workflow, because it meant that all they needed in the booth was someone to boot up the Pearl Nano, connect a camera, and hit the stream button, and it's all pre-configured to go and push up to the right place. So that is very, very, very cool. And I have no idea what the latency was like on that in terms of sync between the different things, because all the cameras were in the same location. They were all in the convention center, and then they were all being mixed up in Ottawa. So it worked well. Okay, so if you did watch this on my channel, I made a mistake, which was not actually testing the end-to-end workflow of this, because what I had them doing, I was like, oh, I'll happily broadcast this on my channel too, instead of just yours. And I had them do what had been doing on the show floor myself, which was pushing the stream into my studio, where then I push from my studio out to YouTube. And that way it gets routed through my whole thing, where I can do the chat comments and the countdown timer and all that. And the intro outro graphics, and have control over that myself. The problem was we hadn't actually tested that, and there was a problem with the audio, something about the probably the bitrate mismatch or something, where the receiver on my end was getting a bad audio signal from their Pearl. So it was just crackly and did not work well. So apologies for that. That was not their fault. It was a lot going on there. So we didn't have the whole test plan like I normally should have done.
Kind of like our show
Yeah, exactly. I was relatively confident in it, because I had been streaming from the YOLO box on the show floor to my studio like the day before or even the morning before, and everything had been fine. So I didn't think about the fact that a totally different encoder might do different things.
Got it. And I can't fix your audio. I'm realizing the reason that I can't fix it is the same reason that I'm routing it the way that I am, because of that whole HDMI out mismatch. So I don't have a clean audio feed from the Pearl coming into the ATEM. So it's actually routing through Mimo Live. That's how I'm scaling it, because I realized that if I scaled it the way we'd set it up yesterday through the decimator, then I would lose the ability to show my Mac screen, and I figured I might want to pull this up to show some web pages. So, oops.
Okay.
So, last minute changes always mess things up. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Epiphan, and a great explanation of that. And of course, we did that live show. And there is that live stream from my interview that is still on my channel. So if you just go one video prior to this, for anyone watching who wants to see what it actually looked like, that is there and ready to go. Okay, so
my interview is live on their channel, so you can watch it on there, and they broadcast it. They did broadcast it to their channel directly, and it worked fine on that end, so you can watch that interview there.
Cool. Excellent. All right, so we hit Atomos, we hit Epiphan. Let's talk about Blackmagic, because that's obviously a big one that both of us are super into for a lot of different types of products. So why don't you go first? What was your kind of top thing that you saw there? And including things they announced the week prior.
Right. So yeah, they did their own live stream launch the week before, and then on Sunday dropped the new ATEM Constellation HD series, kind of surprise out of nowhere with no additional live stream from them. But that was what I was, I would say, most surprised by, obviously, but also probably the most interested in, just because I've been anxiously awaiting whatever new ATEMs they've been planning for a while now, since their rack mount lineup had this gap in it ever since all the additions that they've done in the Mini line and the Constellation 8K. So I was looking for what was coming out of that line. And it took me a couple of days of thinking through, like, why did they launch this as HD only? Why didn't they do a 4K version? That was kind of surprising to me. I was assuming anything they would do in the rack form factor would just be 4K now, because there's already the ATEM Mini stuff is great for HD, and I didn't expect them to see a market for HD stuff in the rack form factor. But they clearly think that is a good product to launch. So yeah, the three new Constellation HDs, the 1ME, 2ME, and 4ME, and they are the 2/3 rack, the full rack, and the the 2U rack form factor. So they get pretty big with 40 inputs on the biggest one, which is just massive. So yeah, it took me a couple days of thinking through like how would this help me in my studio here? Does it make sense for me to buy one? Does it make sense for me to wait until until everything gets updated to 4K and just switch over to 4K like you've done with your studio? But I think I'm gonna go ahead actually and go with the 2ME and upgrade to that because the price is pretty good. It was like $1,700, which I was feeling pretty okay about. Not willing to go up to $3,600 for the 40 input version, as fun as that would be. But I think for $1,600 or $1,700, whatever it is, I think I'm willing to do that in order to get the benefits of adding that into the system here. I do think it's going to help clean up a lot of what I've kind of the sprawl that my wiring diagram has turned into here. So I've got quite the chain of stuff here. The rack on my that's running everything here is full and is wired up in a relatively complicated way. So I think it'll clean up some of that signal path, and we'll see how it goes. Still have some more thinking through to go.
So the 2ME is 40 inputs?
No, 4ME is 40 inputs. 2ME is
40. The 4ME is 40 inputs. Good grief. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I even realized that.
Yeah, right.
I didn't pay that close attention to these. So that's twice the inputs that my ATEM 2ME has. Because it's got 20.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And the new 2ME has 20 inputs and 12 outputs.
Okay.
One of the interesting thing is the outputs are all assignable. They're all aux outputs now, except for it's 12 outputs plus 2 multi-view outputs. And the aux outputs are all assignable. There's no dedicated program. So
wow. It's almost like they're kind of
that's
combining
a change.
A video hub into it by putting that many aux outs. Because my ATEM 2ME, which now they've really confused the names, right? Because the one that I own is the ATEM Production Studio, I guess, 2ME, or Broadcast, one of those two. And that has 6 aux outs. It does have dedicated program and multi-view outs as well, but only 6 aux outs. So if this one has that many more, and so many more inputs, it does, in a sense, become like a video hub built in. And at that price, when you said it's $3,600 for the 4ME, so that's getting close.
$3,600 for the.
Yeah, that's getting close to the price of my 2ME, the 4K model, which makes you think how expensive is a 4K model of this new one going to be. So it's definitely going to be bumping up. And part of the price increase is the scalers, right? There's scalers on every single input. That's a big deal. And that's the problem that I have on an almost constant basis. That is the challenge that I deal with on my ATEM is without the scalers, the signal has to be precise. And so the problem with the show that we're having right now, the reason that Aaron's video is being routed as it is because the video coming out of my Pearl was 4K at just off of 30 hertz. It wasn't 2997. It wasn't exactly 30. It's like something ever so slightly off, and that breaks it. Without getting that locked signal, it just breaks it. So interesting. Wow.
So one big difference in the new constellations compared to the video hubs is it's not a real SDI matrix because all of the audio out, all of the auxes is the program audio. It does not switch the audio like a matrix would.
Okay.
So you can sort of use it like a matrix, but not 100%. So I'm still, again, thinking through how this is going to help me, but I do feel like for the most part when I'm using my video hub, I'm not actually routing audio through it anyway. So I think it'll actually help my workflow quite a lot to have more of it built into the main switcher.
Okay, interesting. Fun stuff. Wow, okay, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Resolve and the things that went with that next. Let's take a quick look in the comments and see if there's anything we want to hit on. A lot of people excited about the Blackmagic stuff for sure. Keith is saying no super source in the 1ME, right? And I think that's correct.
Right, yeah. So actually the 1ME is a weird one, I think. And I'm a little bit confused by what they did there. It's $1,000, so that means it's the same price as the ATEM Mini Extreme and the non-ISO version. And the ATEM Mini Extreme has more features than the 1ME because it has the recording and streaming built in and the super source. And the 1ME rack mount now is the same price and it does not have recording. it does not have streaming encoder, and it does not have SuperSource. So this feels a little bit weird to me. It seems like it's clearly a straight upgrade from the old Television Studio HD, where it's more close to the exact features of that. But it feels pretty weird to have lined up next to the ATEM Mini Extreme like that.
That does seem, yeah. So the Television Studio, is this the replacement for that? Is the Television Studio model gone now?
I didn't actually check if the Television Studio model is gone now, but I believe there would be no point in buying the Television Studio model now.
Right. Okay.
Unless you need the HDMI inputs in it, because yeah, the new stuff is all SDI.
Awesome. Oh, Bailey, look at that. Bailey saying, don't forget to like the stream. Thank you, Bailey. Very, very much appreciate that. Everybody go like this video. So people are talking about the shuttle, the Hyperdeck shuttle, which I still don't fully get.
Okay.
You want to explain this one? Because it's cool. I guess from what I see of it is, it's a great way to play back video if you're using an ATEM Mini and you just want to have some video to play back instead of having to, like right now, you'd have to get a computer or some other video playback device, plug it in and play. So this, you can load some videos onto an SD card, pop it in the shuttle, and just hit play from there. Is that, and then there's the teleprompter thing, it's wholly separate, but that's the basic purpose of it.
I think it's really meant to go with the ATEM Minis because it is HDMI out only, HDMI in and out. There's no SDI on it, so it's not you're not gonna run a long cable over to your rack switchers. And it's the actual same height, or what do you call that, depth and form factor of the ATEM Mini Extreme. So it's like a short version of the ATEM Mini Extreme, same form factor, so it would work very well next to it. And yeah, it's got the nice little wheel for playback. It's got all the playback buttons on it, and of course, it can be networked and controlled by the ATEM Mini Extreme as well, like any other Hyperdeck would. Okay. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a good option for people who have an ATEM Mini. Probably Extreme only. I think, well, you could use it with a tiny mini as well. But I think it makes a lot of sense if you have the ATEM Mini Extreme and you're looking for a Hyperdeck playback device, with the big caveat that, again, it's a Hyperdeck, which means it's very picky about video formats that are on the card. But I think it makes a lot more sense than a rack version of the Hyperdeck for using with the ATEM Mini. Because if you have an ATEM Mini, it's probably not in a rack. And then having that sort of third rack device sitting somewhere next to the ATEM Mini, it just looks awkward. So
makes sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense for that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then to your reference of it being very picky about the formats, I noticed in Resolve 18 in the deliver page there is now a Hyperdeck preset that you can choose. I haven't even looked into it. I just saw it there and I go, oh, okay, good, because before that it's just been kind of a guessing game. So let's talk a little bit about Resolve 18 then. The main feature that I'm excited about, and I know there's some great features in there, the depth mask thing that they build is very, very cool. But for me, it's the remote editing, the collaborative editing. So with Resolve 18, they've made the ability to put the entire library in the cloud in Resolve's new Resolve Cloud. For a whopping $5 a month, you can store your library up there, your database, I guess it's called. And you don't have to, you can pull it down at any time once your collaboration is done. It's not like it's locked in there for life or anything. $5 a month, and then anybody who you give access to anywhere in the world can access that library, that database, and start editing your projects. And when they're editing it, you see them logged in. You see a little icon next to the bin that they're in. You see an icon next to the timeline that they're on. And if you open the same timeline, you're looking at it in a read-only mode, and you can, a little thing will pop up in the corner telling you to refresh, and you can refresh and see the changes that they're making virtually in real time. It's insane. And I'm working with Remote Editor
really cool.
in Europe, who we immediately set this up. And the last project that I delivered, the data video, that was all done in Resolve 18, completely start to finish, because it was a very tight window. Start to finish, editing and delivered all straight out of 18, and it worked great. A couple little hiccups along the way, but it worked, and we got the project out.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad to see this too, because I've been interested in doing that sort of workflow with Resolve, because it has been possible for a long time, but you have to set up your own database. So the whole Resolve database is a Postgres server, which you can spin up your own Postgres server on an Amazon machine, for example. And I actually had started going down this path, and I have a server running at my home in a machine at home that is running my Resolve database. And what that means is that all of my computers are now connected to it, and I can VPN in and get connected to it so I can load up my timelines on any of my computers. Now, I don't actually work with any remote editors, but this is still really useful for myself across all my different computers. I don't have to worry about which computer I use to open up a project anymore. And it's been really useful, but the amount of work it takes to set that up is not something I'm about to go make a YouTube video about. It's go install Linux, go install Postgres, go set up a VPN. Like, no, I was doing it to test out what it would take to make a video about it, and then I was like, this is just not gonna happen. This is too complicated.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to because
No, you don't
they've
have to.
built it into Resolve. So
That's right.
yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I know we don't have a whole lot of time because you've got a show starting at 11, so you need to jump out, 10, 15 minutes before that. And then I will be
Yep.
on your show then as well. So this is,
Yep.
we're clearly idiots here scheduling all this stuff back to back, but there we go. So where do you want to go next? You want to talk about YOLO Live? You want to talk about something else next?
Yeah, we can talk quickly about YOLO Live. So I ended up bringing my YOLO box to the show and trying out some streams from there, which was my first time I've been to the show. So also my first attempt at live streaming from the show floor, and it mostly worked. I had the thing that made it work the best was actually putting a SIM card in this directly. Because one of the things I noticed was that the carriers ended up throttling the tethering data more than they were throttling the direct access data from the device. So like my phone was getting fantastic speeds on speed test from my phone. I was getting like literally on the show floor, 300 down, 50 megabits up
Yep.
on the show floor from my iPhone, which is great. And I was able to access anything I needed from the phone. As soon as I tethered my computer to the phone, the speeds drop a ton because they know it's a tethering connection. And they're like, we probably don't want to back up your Dropbox over our cell network, right? And the same is true with the YOLO box because it's essentially a phone, and you can tether this to another thing over Wi-Fi, but it has a SIM slot in it. And I got a separate SIM card, and that's what really made it all work. Was I was able to put the SIM card into this, and then the carriers see it as a direct cell phone connection. They don't see it as tethering. So it was getting good speeds. It's not 5G, so it was more like 40 down, 15 up or whatever, but still totally fine. So the streams I was doing from there worked, and I did a stream on Sunday, my normal time right when the show floor opened. The parts of it that broke down were all when I needed to see the multi-view from my laptop or control the rest of the stream that was remote, because I was streaming from the YOLO box to my studio, and my laptop didn't have a great connection. So
Oh, interesting.
that was the part that was sort of like flaky, and the part where I was struggling, but the actual data itself was doing just fine. So
And that would have been-
interesting lesson learned there.
And that probably would have been more successful had you not tried pushing to your studio and then relaying it, if you were just going straight live from the YOLO box as it's designed for. But you got to get fancy with it.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying too many things, and I probably should have just removed some of the complicated bits. But yeah, now that I know that, probably next year I will not try going through my studio from that because of that's the weak link, and just go straight from the YOLO box up to YouTube, and it should be just fine.
There you go. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so now the Max.
Yeah, okay, so YOLO Box Max. It's a new thing. It's not released yet, not available, but it will be soon. They had a demo on the floor. It is essentially a, 24, 27-inch vertical TV with their software built into it. And the whole goal of it is for being able to stream to YouTube and TikTok and places that don't let you ingest RTMP. The reason that it works is because, again, it is an Android device, and they have loaded the real Instagram app on the device. So you are using this gigantic Instagram, and all the buttons are like massive, and you just go log in like you would on any phone, and then it's connected to your account. You can browse your timeline, you can like stuff and whatever, because it's just the Instagram app. But when you click go live, it, instead of exposing a built-in camera like a phone would, it has its own internal switcher that is exposed to the device as the webcam. So Instagram sees one camera, but behind that is their switcher, where you have multiple HDMI inputs and a USB webcam input, and then you can actually switch and do multi-camera streaming and use real cameras. So I actually did a test stream of that on Saturday night from the show floor on my Instagram account, and the video is still there. You can go find it. I used my Sony ZV-E10 and turned it sideways, and it worked. It worked. It was great. I mean, because again, it was a real Instagram app. There was no tricks really. So pretty cool. Pretty cool.
So my only question on this, because I get why they've done this. I think it's a great way to work around the limitations of not being able to stream directly to it from any other platform. So building in the switcher, it's great. Hopefully they will add this capability to the other YOLO boxes. It doesn't seem like there's any reason not to. They're all running Android. So my only question is, why is it so big? What's the point of making the tablet that big?
Yeah. It's huge. They are working on a desktop size version that's going to be like this big instead of like 27 inches. I think the idea is that it is specifically designed for live selling, which is not something that a lot of the US audience is used to, but it's a huge market in China. And for that, you often are going to be standing 12, 15 feet away from the camera because you want a full body shot because you're like showing things you're wearing or whatever. Like it's a whole thing that I'm not familiar with that world, but that is also why in 20 minutes I'm hosting on, well, all of our channels a stream about exactly this. And we have some people who are more familiar with that and have some experience who are going to join us and talk about it.
Well, maybe I'll ask the question then.
I think that's the reason.
I'll ask the question on your show and see if anyone has a good answer. Because even there, what you've just explained to me, why would you would just have the camera far out, have a wide shot like I've got here, and then just have the little switcher down here? Why have the switcher with the huge screen?
So you can see yourself. It's also a confidence monitor. Because if you don't have that, you're going to be looking down to the side at a tiny screen to see what you look like on camera. Okay. And the alternative for that is, of course, like what you're doing right now, where you've put a giant TV far away from you so that you can see what's going on.
Right.
And you can do that. Sure, anybody can do that, but now you have to buy two things.
Right.
So
okay,
it's,
that's fair.
Again, it's the all-in-one. It's the all-in-one.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more, and then we're going to have to let you go. The one that I want to talk about is from the Nanlite booth. I'm actually going to pull up my screen so you can see this. So the Nanlite, I've talked about it a bunch before on this channel. I really, really like their lights. They have, they're not a sponsor, but they have sent me a bunch of gear to play with. And these are little bulbs, right? And this is kind of we've seen this type of a design before. Aperture has a really nice one. The Hue bulbs are super popular, but Hue bulbs are not for cinematography. They flicker. They are running at a 50 hertz cycle or something off of 50. They don't work for normal shooting world. So ixnay on the Hue bulbs, unfortunately. The Aperture ones are closest to this. Same style of design. It screws into a standard light bulb socket. The big difference between this one and the Aperture one is this one does not have a battery, which you would think, oh, well, hold on, the battery's good. We want that, and there's obviously advantages to that. And they do sell an add-on battery pack that you can screw it into if you do need it to be battery powered. But their whole logic behind not having it battery powered is apparently the Aperture ones have serious heat issues because of the battery. They have, the top of the bulb is like a donut, and that's entirely designed for cooling, which means you don't get as much light out vertically. It also means that if you mount the light upside down, like a hanging bulb, you get much less life out of it because it has to keep cool and it whatever overheats or whatever it does, but you end up losing battery time on it. So Nanlite put a lot of research and decision making into this and decided to do it without the battery. And so you have a more traditional style bulb. You just screw in, it immediately lights up. It has some buttons on it to change hue or whatever, but then of course you have the app to go with it. And it seems like a very nice bulb, and they're selling them in kits of multiple sizes and so on. So pretty slick setup. It's definitely a very nice product. They also had a new PhotoTube, a really thin, very lightweight one that was designed more for light painting, but it's under $100, and you've got this fun little lightweight PhotoTube that you can play around with. So that was cool. And then their big lights, the Forzas, they've got one that's now a 700 watt, and it's a massive, massive piece of light. They were saying it's the brightest light of its type on the market right now. So that's pretty bad. That's pretty badass. Like that. Let's see. Oh, go ahead. You can say something.
No. I am just thinking I should go jump out of here right now to go set up for the next stream. So you can wrap up here.
Yeah, you go ahead, jump out to there. I will be over there.
But
I'll talk about a couple of the things
that
I saw.
Yep, and we've got, feel free to jump over to, stay on Joseph's channel if you want, but also on my channel or bunch of others. We're going to be doing we have a whole panel lined up to talk about the YOLO box and the live selling world. So thank you for having me. I'm going to hop off here
Cool.
and yeah, see you again
See you in
soon.
about 15 minutes. All right,
Yep.
take care. All right, so this show, when this show ends, this will automatically roll over to the next live show. So we've got that all set up, which is again going to be broadcast from Aaron's studio out to a bunch of other people's channels because it's everybody who's involved in the YOLO Live contest. So if you enter the YOLO Live contest, which we talked about a few different places, and you want to see who wins live, this would be the place to tune in. So that's what that's all about. All right, we take a quick look at the chats here and see if there's anything else I want to hit before we move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. Looks good up there. All right, so here I'll go ahead and show you the other Nanlite stuff. So if we look at the products, so these are the bulbs. Here's the Forza 720. This is the monstrous LED spotlight. Is absolutely huge. So they have two versions. There's the 720, the 720B. The B is a bicolor, and there's all kinds of really cool things they've done with it to make it so that the lighting stays the same consistency, the same brightness as you ramp between different color temperatures. So if you've ever worked with a bicolor bulb before, you know that basically the way that they work is you've got a bunch of LEDs at one color temperature range and a bunch at the other range. And if you go all the way to one range, you get full brightness. You go all the way to the other range, you get full brightness. But as you go in between them, basically one's dimming while the other's getting brighter, and you end up with kind of a brightness arc in the middle. And they've done something to keep that brightness arc consistent. So if you've built a set and you've got your exposure locked in and you change the color temperature, it won't shift the brightness while you're changing the color temperature. So that's pretty slick. And it's just overall, it's just a massively, massively bright light. And so there's that one. Let's go to something, I don't necessarily know if this is new, but it was making some splash there, and it's kind of new to me. It's this system called LucidLink, which I'm going to give a try. So LucidLink is essentially a cloud-based storage specifically for our world of media. So going back to my example of using Resolve 18 with the library or the database, the database in the cloud, my remote editor is able to access that library. So what about media? A way that Blackmagic had described it as a potential workflow is to sync with Dropbox, and my remote editor and I were already actually doing that. So we already had our proxies going to Dropbox, so then she just logs into the Dropbox account and has access to it. And because I have a Dropbox business account, and I've talked about this on the show before, if you have 3 Dropbox business accounts, then you get unlimited storage. So I bought 3 seats, even though I'm usually the only one using one, so that I can have the unlimited storage. And so I just assign one of the seats to her, and then she's able to access it. So what LucidLink is doing, similar kind of idea, it's a cloud storage. You pay by the terabyte, whatever amount you need. But the way that you access that data is what's unique about it. You mount your Lucid drive on your desktop just like any server drive. It does have a cache, and you can set your cache to whatever it is, but it's only downloading the bits that you need as you access them. So you don't have to pre-download anything. If I build a project that's got, let's just say, a full terabyte of data up in the cloud, and my editor doesn't need that full terabyte of data, they only get what they need. And they don't have to selectively pull it. They just open the project, it connects to the drive, and then they hit play on the timeline. And theoretically, and this is the part I have not tried, but theoretically, it is delivering, to a degree, obviously assuming you have a fast enough connection, it's going to deliver just the parts that you need. Even if you scrub around the file, it's only going to pull the bits down that you actually need to see, allowing you to access your full terabyte of storage, even though you haven't downloaded that full terabyte. And again, you can build a cache so that it does cache, the last gig or 2 gigs or 5 gigs, whatever you want. So I am going to sign up for the trial on that and give it a try. I think it was about $35 a terabyte, so it's not cheap as far as cloud storage goes, but it does provide some possible workflow things that might have been a bit more complicated before. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really interested in it. A buddy of mine had turned me onto it, told me I should check it out. I think it's a great idea. And like I said, they were getting some traction at NAB. It seems like a lot of people were really impressed with what they were doing. So let me take a quick look back in the chat here, so if there's anything else. Yes, please do give that thumbs up to the live chat. I certainly appreciate that if you can. And share, well, I'd say share it, but we're almost done here, so don't worry so much about that. And, Keith is saying, I have the aperture light, short battery life. Yeah, that little bulb, I love the idea of it having a battery in it, but if it if it's really a downfall in the end, you know, and it's having that in there is taking away other capabilities, then they took it out, and there we go. Hopefully that is the right call to make. I guess we will find out. So, okay, nothing else in the chat I want to hit. Let's see, anything else that I wanted to show? This wasn't anything new. I just really like these guys, Condor Blue. I only have a few of their products, but I was meeting with them, met the founder. They've got some really great gear, and I'll tell you that what I do like, the stuff that I own would be the clamps. Let's see, of course, I'm probably not going to find it on here, but do I even have one around here? I think they're all kind of in use. Yeah, I guess they're all mounted to cameras elsewhere, but it's just their design. Their clamp design is really, really good. So if you're looking for a super clamp to mount your monitor arm on, or your monitor onto an arm, it's a really great design. So I don't know that there's anything actually new with them, but they were just super awesome. So I wanted to give them a little shout out, give them a little love because they were cool. Let's see, we talked about the NAND light, we talked about Atomos, we talked about Blackmagic stuff. That's almost the extent of what I got to see because I was actually teaching the entire time. I was up on the post-production world track on the second floor and I was teaching. And of course, I didn't quite have enough prep time before the show to get everything completely lined up and ready because the data video, pan tilt zoom head video that I released on Saturday before NAB started, that's what I was working on for the week and a half leading up to NAB. So it was kind of a last minute project to get that out before NAB, which didn't give me as much time as I had hoped for to prep. So it meant I did a lot of prepping at NAB for my NAB events, which meant I had very little time on the show floor. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see that much. But there we go. That is what it is. All right, let's see. Anything else on here? Nothing else showing up in here as questions. So if you got anything else you want to talk about, by all means, now is the time to get those questions in because I want to keep this stream running until just a couple minutes before the other one kicks on so I can just run over to the other room and this can roll into the new show. So ask questions, anything you want to ask, I am happy to try to address. We'll see what we can do. You guys are having just a fabulous conversation amongst yourselves in here, which is wonderful. Love that. I'm going to scroll back and see if I missed anything earlier. Drew asks, any plans for YOLObox to have an interview mode like eCam? So I don't know that they're planning to do anything like eCam-wise, where you just give out a URL, and people can call into it. But they do already have the capability, and it's one of these things Aaron and I keep going, we really should try this out one time. You can stream from one YOLObox to another. There's a whole dedicated system in there for that. So I can add a YOLObox, like you would add a source as HDMI or add a USB camera as a source or add a video file as a source. One of the sources you can add is another YOLObox that can be anywhere in the world streaming to you. We've just never tried it. But it is going to be a one-way communication because I wouldn't be able to simultaneously stream to each other and stream to a streaming destination. That you can't do, as far as I know, unless they go through their cloud. Because if you use the YOLObox, they don't call it a cloud system, but if you use their Restream service, I wonder if that would actually work. We got to try that, because that's kind of what it's for. None of us have ever actually tried it, though, one of these days. All right, let's see what else is going on in here. Eric says, DaVinci Resolve 18 Cloud is, as DJF said, GF said, like working on Google Docs with multiple people on the interwebs. Yes, I mean, it really is. It really is. It's incredible. It really is incredible. I am so impressed with it. There are some shortcomings, though. It does not have a timeline restore. So let's say that I work on a timeline, and then I hand it to my remote editor, and they are now going to pick up where I left off, or whatever. They're doing something. And somehow they do something wrong to my timeline, even delete my timeline. There's no going back. There's no automated backup of the library. So you're actually in a bit of a risky situation in that regard. You need to, right now, and this is all in beta, so that's why it's not like, oh, they totally forgot that. It's in beta. But right now, you have to do your own manual backups of your entire database to have any hope of recovery should anything go wrong. So back up your database locally often if you're going to use it, for sure. For sure. All right, let's see. Anything else in here? Anything else? Again, any questions you want to ask about doesn't have to be NAB specific. You can hear my voice is still a little raspy from all the yelling and talking and late nights and Vegas, baby Vegas. Incidentally, y'all should come to Vegas next time. I mean, NAB is awesome. NAB is pretty awesome. Let's see here. John O'Leary says, I'm getting here late. Did the manufacturers indicate the product availability is better? Okay, I don't know which manufacturer you're talking about. Sorry. Eric, timeline restore, so no checkpoints, versioning on the cloud. Yeah, none of that is there. Clearly it has to be there. They have to do something. The other limitation that I ran into in working on this production was, so it's designed to work with proxies, right? That's kind of the idea. Clearly, if you're using something like Lucid Lake, you could put all your content there if you're willing to pay for that much storage. But in general, the idea is you select your footage that you're going to need to share, that your editor needs access to, and you render out the proxies. And you can do that either from within the app, just select all, right-click, render proxies, and then in the resolve preferences, you would simply set your proxy destination to be the Dropbox folder. And that's something that I had done prior to 18. That's literally how I was working with 17. We were just exporting a timeline, sending it, and then she would edit it, and then she'd export the timeline, send it back again. So there's also a new app that is just about rendering the proxies, so you can do all the proxies in the background. When you're rendering proxies in Resolve, it does lock up Resolve, so you can't edit. So you have a huge amount of proxies to render. You can now kick off a background app to do that. Cool. But what's missing is anything that doesn't get a proxy rendered out of it, so your audio files will not get automatically copied over to that proxy folder. So you have to manually do that, or else your editor, as I ran into, is going to open it up and say, I got no audio, man. So you've got to do that manually. That is a workflow issue, and I was talking to them on the show floor about it, and they're kind of going, yeah, I guess that's something we need to sort out. So again, it's all in beta. There's a lot that still needs to happen, but it does actually work. You can do it. It's maybe a little bit more manual backups, a little more manual moving files than you might like to do, but it does work, and hopefully this will get better, better, better. It's pretty cool. Fitzroy says, the Shogun Connect looks great. Is it a replacement for the Shogun 7? Difference in specs. Okay, yeah, you've missed a lot. So Fitzroy, I will just tell you this. It has the whole camera to cloud thing built into it. I don't know. I don't think they're going to discontinue the existing Shogun because it is a very different product. The existing one has more SDI inputs. It doesn't have the camera to cloud thing. It's the original Shogun is kind of a workhorse. It's the one piece of hardware that I use all over the studio to test things because it has so many different ways to get signals in and out. And anyway, I don't know if they're going to replace it. I would imagine it's quite a bit more expensive because of the camera to cloud thing. I actually haven't looked at that. I actually have not looked. Let's see here. Anything else? Somebody else confirming this so far. They've noticed that it looks like an addition. All right, I'm going to call this quits right now. I am going to end the show, let the credits roll, let the post-show thing roll, and it should immediately kick you over to the next live stream. I've never actually tried this, but in YouTube Live, you have an ability to set a place for your audience to go next, so that is set. If for some reason that doesn't work, just look at the channel, you'll see it there. You can watch the same stream over on Aaron's channel or at the channel of any of the creators that are on there. So with that said, thanks a bunch, everybody. Love seeing you here today. Always awesome. I will see you next week. I should be back on a weekly schedule. Why not? Because, we're here. That's what we do. Okay, and we're out. See ya.